and welcome to this webinar. My name is Mark Brummel. I'm Senior Product Specialist at ForNAV, and I'm your presenter today. In this webinar, we're going to talk about the label reports that will come out very soon. Even though it's very easy to create your own labels with ForNAV, we are getting many requests from our community to ship labels out of the box, especially now with AppSource and Business Central. We think this makes a lot of sense. In Seaside, with the good old NAV, it's very easy to quickly create and maintain a report, but with Business Central, even though if you use ForNAV to create your per tenant extensions, it's a little bit more cumbersome and to create them and to maintain them. And by shipping standard labels, we hope that we can give partners and customers umbrellas to connect their own layouts to, so the steps to create your own labels becomes even easier than it is today. So with the release of Report Pack version 3.0, we're going to ship 10 label reports, of which 4 are generic reports that you can connect to anything in the system using an API. And 6 of the label reports are bound to specific tables and are a little bit more simple from a design perspective. All of the reports work out of the box, and of course you can install them from the TXT file or the FOB file that you are used to. You can download the TXT file from the designer. You can choose your flavor for Seaside if you want to download them in our ISV range or in something else. Everything is your choice. But you can also download them as an extension from AppSource or as a per tenant extension if you want to use ForNAV with extensions on premises. This does make it all a little bit more complicated. I'm going to do part of this webinar and the demos in Seaside. I'm going to do part of the demos and things in extensions with the web client. So hold on and be prepared to switch up and down between NAV and Business Central a little bit. We're going to split the agenda into 3 parts, and we're going to split the webinar into 2 parts. We're going to start with very simple labels. Labels that if you look at them, you may think that, hey, I can do this myself in 15 minutes. But the idea is to give you inspiration, and especially on AppSource, to give you an umbrella to connect to, a framework to connect to get started. And then we'll talk about label sheets, which are a little bit more complicated from a programming perspective, but very simple to use from a user perspective. And then we'll talk about a little bit more complicated labels like sales shipment labels, production orders, and item price tags. And the first part of this webinar, we're going to look at this from a more functional and sales-oriented perspective. And then in the second part of the webinar, if you're a developer, we're going to deep dive into how the labels are designed, especially if you work with this from Seaside. I'm going to show you where to find certain code units, where to connect to the API, and how things are plumbed together at the back end. So let's start with the simple labels. As I said in the introduction, the simple labels are intended as a starting point of inspiration and to use as an example. Especially in the cloud, it makes a lot of sense to have a template report, as it only requires you to install the ForNAV designer to enhance. So it eliminates completely the step of creating a per tenant extension. We've decided to create simple labels for the most popular master data, which in our case, we identified customer, vendors, items, employees, contacts, and resources. You may ask, why is the fixed asset not here? Or we decided against doing the fixed asset for now. Maybe we'll add it later if we get a lot of requests. So if you have a sales position within your organization and you want to demo this, and you really want to go to your customer and just put a label printer on the desk and see how easy it is to print labels from Business Central, all of the labels that we ship with the product are optimized for the Brother QL 800. This is a very cheap, lower end of the market thermic printer. You can buy it at Amazon for 100 or 150 euros or dollars, and you'll get started within a few minutes. If you buy it, inside of the box there will be a 62 millimeter label roll, and all of the labels that we ship with the product are optimized for this 62 millimeter label roll. The labels are easy to clone, easy to enhance. I'm not going to dive into the designer in the first part of the webinar. In the first part of the webinar, I'm just going to show you where to find the labels and how to demo them. In the second half of the webinar, I'm going to show you how to go in and how to even use JavaScript to enhance the reports. One of the things that I learned myself the hard way while I was doing this project is if you're doing a lot of testing, if you make the Brother printer your default printer, and you're just you have a customer label or an item label, and you run the label and you forget to put filters on, it's easy to waste a lot of paper. And even though the QL 800 is a very cheap printer, the label roll is more expensive because it's a thermic printer. There's no ink, so the label roll is the most expensive part of the printer, and you don't want to waste a lot of those labels, or even by accident. That's basically what happened to me. I printed something to the label printer by accident, and then I had to run to the printer to pull the plug out of the wall and to reset my printer. So basically what we did is we said, okay, if you print more than 10 labels in one batch, we show you a warning, and the warning says, do you really want to print like in this case 68 labels? And then you can say, yes, of course, I'm doing this on purpose. Or you can actually disable the warning. I think this failsafe is very nice if you're just getting up and running with the product, or if you're implementing the product. And then once everything is up and running, of course, in the shop floor, you want to do direct printing. So you want to print all those labels at the same time. So let's not waste any more time on talking about this, but let's dive into the product, and I'm going to show you where to find the labels. I'm first going to do this in the web client. I have installed everything on my laptop, and the advantage for us as an ISV with extensions is we can ship page extensions. In Seaside, for us as an ISV, it was very hard to add reports to the UI. But now with page extensions, we can actually go in and add our labels directly to the customer card and to the item card. So you can find labels where they make sense directly in the UI. So I can go into my customer card, and if I use the report option in the customer card, the report option will show me the ForNAV labels. And from here I can start a designer. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll do that in the second part, but I can preview my label, and this will print, as you can see in the preview, a very simple label. It doesn't contain a lot of information. It's just intended to give you inspiration. And because it's optimized for 62 millimeters paper, it shows a bit big in the screenshot. We've implemented a link to the vectorized logo, and we've also implemented a link to the company information, just so that if you want to do that, you can just use it. If you don't want it, you can simply remove it. In the Windows client, we don't have page extensions. You could, if you're using NAV 2018 or BC 14 on-prem, you could actually have page extensions that point to the ForNAV labels. If you want that, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. The page extensions are actually on our GitHub, so you can actually download the page extensions and make this into a per tenant extension if you want. But the easiest way to find the ForNAV reports, if you install the report pack, is by simply type in ForNAV in the search window and then go into ForNAV reports. And here we have categorized all of the reports. And with this release, we've added a category for labels. And here I can go into the same label. I can print the customer label directly from this menu. And I'll select customer number 10,000. And this should give us the same results as in the web client. In this case, it's a little bit smaller because the print preview of the web client, Windows client, is a bit smarter in doing this than the web client. So we've shipped this for the items, the customers, the vendors, employees, contacts, and resources. They are all the same. They look and feel the same. They're easy to clone. And I'll teach you a little bit more about that in the second part. So let's make it a little bit more interesting and dive into the sheets. When we did the functional requirements for this release, we talked a lot to partners. I say, okay, what kind of labels do you think your customers are using? And then the immediate response that we got is that most of the NAV users are using barcode printers with rolls. But especially in marketing departments and sales, people are also using sheets. Sheets are getting a little bit more older and harder to find, but some people still like to use them, especially if you have to make a lot of price tags or if you do large email marketings. And this is where you have an A4 sheet of paper with 24 labels, and each row has, in this case, 3 labels. What we did is we created a label sheet that is plug and play with any table in Business Central. As long as the table has a number field that allows us to identify a record. So this means basically all of the master data in Business Central, all of the jobs, the manufacturing, the sales documents, anything that you can identify with a number field, we can plug into the label sheets. And then we allow you to print either 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 labels per row. If you want to add 10 or 11 labels, I can show you how it works. But because we use a temporary table behind the scenes, you are limited to row size, especially if you use older versions of NAV and if you don't use Business Central. They're easy to enhance using JavaScript, and you can add extra filters to any fields. So it's a bit boring to talk about, so let's go into demo mode again, and I'm just going to demo this directly on the Windows client. It's here ForNAV label sheets, and when I run the report, it asks me which table do you want to run it against. And if I use the drop-down menu, it actually searches for all of the tables within NAV that have the design pattern, the identifier that we need to run this label report. And in this case, I'm going to use the customer table. And let's start simple with 2 labels per row and see what this looks like. Just going to hit preview. Now I'm getting a second step in my process where I can put in extra filters. This is done using filter pages. We suggest to filter on the first 3 fields in the table. This is just to add a little bit of easy filtering for the users. I'm not going to put in any filters right now. Of course, I can switch to different fields with the filters if I wanted to. But you can see that it prints the number of the customer, and it prints the address and the barcode. You can change the barcode into anything else, and I'll show you that briefly when we'll dive into the design part of the webinar. We can print something else. Let's print items. Items are always nice to print if you want to do something like price tags, or if you get new shipments into your warehouse, you want to just print some stickers with a barcode. And in this case, we're going to do 9 labels and preview again. And you can see that instead of 2 labels per row, I'm now getting 9 labels per row, and the module nicely calculates how many rows are needed to do this. So this is very generic, and if you are using this in combination with any ISV solutions, we are just using some technology behind the scenes that automatically picks up any changes in the metadata of the database. So any ISV solution that's using development best practices will automatically be picked by this label sheet. So it's plug and play with most of the ISV solutions that exist in the ecosystem today. So this label, the sheet labels, were a little bit more challenging to build from a development perspective than the simple labels. And the most complex variant that we have in this version of the report pack are the shipping and product labels. Of course, technically, you could make a shipping label directly on the sales invoice or on the sales shipment, and you could make a product label directly on the production order. But what if you have a customer which is happy with their product label and then wants to switch from manufacturing to assembly management? Or what if you have a customer with a shipping label and then they want to use the shipping labels for return orders? And it's very easy to end up with a lot of copies of labels that all have to be maintained individually. Also, most VARs in our ecosystem have easily a 50 or 100 or 150 customers. And what you typically do as a VAR, if you get requirements for shipping labels, is you take the requirements of your customer and then you go into your memory and then you say, okay, in which other implementation did I do something similar? And then it would be very nice if you can just apply the layout from one project to another project. So what we did from a design perspective was we decided to say, okay, let's make a generic table, which is called the ForNAV label table. And on top of this generic table, we're going to create a label that you can just plug into any part of the NAV application. And out of the box, we plugged it into the sales shipment and the production order. And we're eagerly awaiting feedback from this to see where people want to have this plugged in also. But it's relatively easy to plug in this label into other application areas, even if you work with extensions. All you have to do is to create a simple per tenant extension that handles the mapping from a certain area of Business Central into the label. The label can be connected to both the header and the lines. A lot of areas in Business Central have both a header table and line tables, and sometimes you want to print a shipping label only for a complete shipment. Sometimes you want to have a shipping label for each item in your shipment, but sometimes you even have a warehouse and you want to have a sticker for each box. And all of those options are covered in the API that we ship. And we have out of the box, we have a portrait and a landscape label. And this label is actually optimized for the Zebra printer, which is a label which is 10.1 centimeters wide that you can use. So let's switch back to the web client first, and here we have page extension, so I can go into sales and then select posted sales shipments and select one of the posted sales shipments in the database and view one of those. And here we have plugged in the label into the report actions. So you can print a ForNAV shipping label directly from here. You can switch orientation if you want. It'll memorize the orientation for the next time and even for the next user. And you can toggle between having one label per package or one label for the entire line, and then you can start a designer from here. So let's see what this label looks like. It generates the PDF for me. And you can see that it prints all of the information that you expect on a shipping label, our company's address and contact information, the logo, the from address, which in this case is the blue warehouse, the shipping information of the customer. It prints the zip code or the postcode very big, because this is typically what warehouses use to organize their shipping process. If the external document number is populated, we'll print that as well. And then of course we have the item number and the item description and the customer reference, if that exists on the sales shipment. A barcode, in this case we use the item number for the barcode, but you can switch that to something else if you prefer. And then we have the quantity, the unit volume, gross weight and net weight. We have shipment date, expiration date, lot number and serial number if that's populated in your database. So let's see what the same process looks like in the Windows client. So in the Windows client, I can print the ForNAV sales shipment label directly here from the ForNAV reports. This is typically something that you may want to plug into an event publisher in the shipping process, so that you actually post the sales shipment, the label is printed automatically. Now I'm going to select that I want to have one label for each quantity in my system. And now it'll print a lot of pages, because the sales shipment label that I've selected for my demo actually has 25 boxes of this and 96 boxes of that. So it's going to print a lot of labels at the same time. And I'm doing this on purpose because the feedback that we got from partners when we talked to them about this project was, what about performance? Especially if you work with Zebra printers. Zebra printers have their own language, and we all know that if you talk to these Zebra printers in their own language, they are super fast. So a lot of partners had their concerns. What if you use Windows printer drivers for this, and how is performance, and how does this work with the web client? And in order to test that and toggle that, we had one of our favorite customers that we use as a guinea pig test this out for us, company Vos Transport, and they are doing a lot of labels. It's a trucking company. And basically what we did is we gave them early access to the report pack, and see if we could get good performance out of this. And they are printing directly to a Zebra printer. If a truck driver comes back from picking up shipments, they go to the counter, and then they want to have the labels to label all the pallets. And we can happily say that we have printed over 100,000 labels with this software, using the ForNAV labels, directly printing to a Zebra, using Windows drivers. And it's the performance is just super amazing good, and it's very stable, and the labels look really nice in this case. And when we go into the technical part of the webinar, which is the next part, I'm also going to show you how we have enhanced the labels using event subscribers to put additional fields on the labels.